Great, cool. Okay, well, hi Matthew. Welcome to you are probably the first guest in about 2 years that we've had this coffee chat. So no pressure at all. But welcome. I'm so happy that you're here to share your story about becoming a teacher and just getting to know more about you. But yeah, welcome on.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Jay. It's great to be here.
Great. So yeah, we can dive right into it. I know that you are now a teacher at Fraser Academy, but yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah, just a kind of a brief rundown because I know more will come up through questions and conversation. But yeah, myself started out as a student, started going to Fraser Academy as a student as well. I can get a bit more into that later. But then graduating from Fraser Academy, I was looking around at colleges and universities and kind of leading in from about myself. I really enjoy smaller communities, groups of people, and certainly Fraser Academy fostered that growing up through that school, and I wanted to continue that through Corpus Christi. So certainly with my own family unit group of friends, I always found kind of finding those small groups helped me flourish, and then finding other small groups made that kind of community grow.
Oh, awesome. So correct me, is Fraser Academy, is there like an elementary school or is it kind of high school only?
Oh, great question. Yeah, Fraser Academy is elementary and high school, or middle as well. It can go from 1 to 12. Usually we have students as young as three,
Oh, nice.
grade three.
Okay. And it's a co-ed school, boys and girls?
Yes,
Okay,
co-ed, yes.
great. That's awesome. So is it fun to be working back at your alma mater? Or is it a
It,
little weird at first or?
yeah, slightly weird at first, but a lot of fun. I always found that I got speaking of the small community, I made friends with my peers, fellow students, but also with some of the teachers too. I got to know through being there from grade 3 to 12, and getting that elementary, middle, and high school experience in that small community was huge. And actually, then just coming back and helping to foster that with future generations of the students is great.
Oh, that's great. Well, um, I guess after your time at Fraser Academy, you obviously went into Corpus, but how did you hear about the school or what how did you find out about the school?
Yeah, I've got a fun story about that. So it goes back to I think yeah, it would be grade 10. We went to the university and kind of education fair. So we went to, as a field trip, as many schools do at Canada Place.
Right.
And I actually saw the Corpus Christi booth, and I met Dan Levangie, one of the previous counselors, professors there.
Mhm.
And I met him, and I thought like, oh, it sounds like an interesting school, especially being associated in that kind of sense of on the UBC campus, things like that. So I kept it in mind. And then the next year when I went in grade 11, I saw the booth again. And I saw Dan again. So I went up to the booth and was like, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And actually, it was funny. I remembered his name. It wasn't, I guess, I guess a big deal for me because then sometimes I can be bad with names. But it was interesting when I had the interview that summer for pre-admission when Corpus did some pre-admission grade 11 and kind of knew you'd be able to go depending on marks. He commented to me, he said, "Oh, Matthew, yeah, it's so great to see you here for your interview to come." And he reminisced that he was so impressed that I remembered his name from one of the conventions to the other.
Oh, wow. So it was kind you just, I guess, constantly kept coming or from grade 10 to 11 and you just kept being down of Levangie.
Yeah, exactly. And then I
Oh,
found too, like just learning more about it, that smaller class sizes,
mhm.
and a little in the community as well as to tie back to what I'm used to at Fraser and in
Right.
my own life, where I really felt that it, like the big tagline you have Corpus Christi, of course, is that you're a name, not a number. And then certainly
Exactly.
with yeah, bigger universities at a certain point, the bureaucracy gets so big, but that's why like it's nice having that smaller feel and things like that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like that was one of the things that actually surprised me was more so just getting to have a relationship with my professors.
Yes, yeah.
At UBC, I'm 982,765.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, and it's a big number now too. Yeah, with all
Right?
the past
Yeah.
students. Yeah, and actually, you're right too about getting to know professors. Two other anecdotes is on getting to know professors.
Mhm.
Kara Camcastle, I believe, is she still a professor there?
Um, I up to last semester, I believe she was. I'm not quite sure about this year.
Not to worry. Well, shout out to Kara ever
Yeah.
sees the podcast.
Political science,
The
though, right? Uh,
Precisely political science. So I took many of her classes, and then we even after I went to UBC, transferred to for finishing my degree. Her and I were kind of almost Trudeau spotting. It was during his first campaign, and we both kind of emailing back and forth, being like, "Oh, we heard Trudeau's coming to this event. If you don't, if you have a chance and stuff." And so, unfortunately, her and I never got to cross direct paths, but it was kind of nice chatting some politics. And even when BC was going to have their or when we had a referendum about our voting system, actually, it was nice. She was a great year. I emailed her then too, and was kind of like, "Well, what's your thoughts on this?" And curious to get her expertise. So it was kind of professor. I'm actually still gardening for her on and off on summers over the last 10 years after having her for as a professor. So it's you definitely build those relationships, like more so than compared to other university or bigger universities.
so sorry, you cut out a little bit, but did you say that Carrick Camp Castle, you used to garden for Carrick Camp Castle for a little bit? I was trying to.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I muddled the two stories there. My bad. Sorry, Kara Castle. Yeah, we talked politics, and then Karen Ewing for geography.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
and
me.
then
The
yeah.
connection was unstable, so I just heard the last one.
Oh, it always about that too. I wasn't sure what to make through, but suffice to say, just those two individual stories, yeah, Kara Castle and Karen Ewing, definitely showed that the professors themselves, not just the institution of Corpus Christi College, but the professors themselves see that kind of dynamic. And certainly, I took the courses with them, and then we kind of had that professional relationship post, which was very good.
And do you still, I mean, maybe not Carrick Camp Castle, or maybe, but do you still keep in touch with any of those professors from your time at Corpus?
Yes. Oh, actually, I've got another anecdote. Yes.
Awesome.
Another. I didn't actually have him, but Neil. Neil Christie. Actually, how could I forget his name? That was funny. He was Dr. Christie at Corpus Christi College. He taught medieval history, and unfortunately, I missed him by a semester because then he got he needed to move to another institution. But I then ran into him through another friend who went to Corpus. They were playing Warhammer together, and now he's actually part of our Warhammer group.
Oh, I'm not too familiar with Warhammer, but is that like some sort of game?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
tabletop. So yeah, big 4x4 or 6x4 foot table, and then where you paint the models and move them around. So yeah, it was just very interesting. So yeah, I have the connection to those three, and then even Dan I've seen around because I had him as an English professor and his wife as well for anthropology. And then as a thank you, I even took them to the Maritime Museum a number of years later when I ran into him again on UBC campus. And so it was kind of nice where it's just, even if it's just those once and meetings afterwards or the while I was at UBC. And it was great where I think she recognized me before I recognized her. And she then actually took the time to stop and say, "Oh, hello, how are you?" And then and kind of have that interaction rather than just kind of carrying on her.
On like that relationship you have with Dr. Christie, with the table, that's actually like I feel like you can't really get that anywhere other than like here or any smaller institution where you can actually really develop some sort of like friendship or like that, find those interesting hobbies to between you and other. You wouldn't get that at a 300 person class, or it'd be tough
Oh
to.
no, you're absolutely right, Jay. Because I definitely found at UBC the professors were very still personable and had those interesting characteristics. But you're right; it was almost that you're watching that podium kind of thing. So like you and they're being very friendly to the class and interacting with them as a professor. But you're right; you wouldn't get those kind of one-on-one conversations more so than just in office hours. But that's usually very short. And hopefully you do go more than once to office hours. But exactly that kind of outside office hours wouldn't be the case at bigger institutions.
Exactly. Well, so how did so your time at Corpus, did you find your love for teaching at Corpus, or was it beforehand? When was kind of this like desire to becoming a teacher, like, really like become real?
Great question, Jay. Yeah, I'd say my love for teaching, it goes hand in hand. To say a bit more about myself, too. My big passion is history. And so I always loved going to museums, learning history in class and all that. And so learning that, I almost found either I wanted to be an archaeologist, so like digging of history, or working in museums preserving. But then I kind of kind of penned down on the teaching of history, and then on that through going to Fraser Academy, I was very inspired by those teachers who really helped students like myself. And just a brief plug to Fraser being an independent school helping kids with learning differences, so myself dyslexia. And so that I found I was very inspired with the patience of those professors at Fraser Academy and the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of wanted to come back and to help the students in a similar way. But yeah, once I got to Corpus and I broadened my horizon of not just history, because I still actually remember being in my interview with Gabe Play, and he said, I was like, he said, what are you thinking of taking at Corpus? I was like, history classes, of course. And actually, I still actually didn't know I couldn't take my entire degree in history. Half of it at least had to be in other subjects. So that really broadened my horizon of other professors and such. So I think after Fraser, and then again, getting that experience in Corpus with those smaller community kind of style settings, and the professor seeing myself as a person and not just as a number, that also helped inspire me further, because at UBC I did take museum and archaeology classes, and right. I found them very interesting, but I knew I wouldn't want to do that day per day, and that's when I really fell in love with then teaching. So I started getting some experience at Fraser Academy, and then actually Voices for Hope, I volunteered and did a presentation when Corpus Christi was doing that as well, which was really good. So yeah, I'd say kind of a blend through my entire education. And I'd say if I didn't go to Corpus, I might not have been in the same path, in the sense of maybe those bigger class sizes going straight into UBC or SFU or other universities with hundreds of students might have maybe soured it. Like I wouldn't know exactly the alternative, but then that kind of, I wouldn't have had the same interactions with the professors like I had.
Right, nice. Well, that's honestly awesome to hear that. It was kind of this gradual, throughout, I guess, a little bit of high school into Corpus, and then Corpus kind of shaped, at least kind of highlighted what you wanted to kind of go in, right?
Exactly.
So were you at Corpus for 2 years, I'm assuming?
Oh, yes, yeah. 2 years of courses, and then coming out of Fraser Academy, they suggested 3 instead of 5 per term. So I was at Corpus for about 3 years, and then that would be about 60. Although, I did take just under 60 credits. So I took kind of all the prerequisites, more of the non-history such. Because actually, like Corpus there's lots of choice, but then actually also having that not less choice, but I just mean that the broad choice. So I took philosophy, geography, political science, history, but it was very nice because there was enough choice. I feel like for the first 2 years of university college, it also had me easily choose and get a depth of what Corpus had to offer. And actually, funny enough, with political science, I took all of Dr. Cam Castle's political science courses, and actually got higher marks than in my history classes. So when I phoned UBC, they just pulled up my grades when I went to talk to them, and they're like, "Oh, we see you're probably going to major in political science." And I was like, "Oh no, I actually want to major in history."
That's some conversation.
Yeah, and I think that really shows too, where I guess the history, of course, there was a lot of writing, so I'd having some difficulty with my dyslexia. Certainly, the Corpus Christi, on another note, really helped with accommodations, and that was no problem. But since a lot of that was essay writing, compared to political science, where Dr. Cam Castle a lot more verbal discussions and kind of smaller assignments. So again, we teach their own, because history classes made a lot of sense to have those bigger papers. But I guess it was very interesting just how it worked out in political science. So maybe I'll switch careers once again, but
well, never say never, I guess. But I guess this kind of segues into my next question, but and maybe you already answered it. Was there a favorite prof that you had at Corpus, or maybe a memorable one that you obviously you mentioned a couple already, but
It's a very good question, Jay. I'd say having coming once again back to that personability of Corpus Christi College. When I think of it, I think of all of them, all the professors as a community. But you're right. If I was to narrow down one, I'd say oh yes, I'd say oh, and then actually, this doesn't help that I've forgotten his name. It was, in my defense, though, it was the very first year and the very first semester. I had him for the second semester too. Oh gosh, yeah, he taught European history, and he also taught at I think it was not St. Patrick College. Sorry, I'm forgetting the name. The local Catholic
region.
Yeah, maybe oh no, not quite region, but oh sorry, I meant like the high school. So not St. Pat's, but or maybe it was St. Pat's. Oh, maybe it was St. Thomas, yeah. And so he was a high school teacher there too, but it was he also moonlight. It was an evening course, so I'll stop rambling. But suffice to say, this professor is, I think, it was interesting. Like as I mentioned, when I think of Corpus, it's like community professors. But I guess this particular professor, because he was there as an evening course, because he taught high school during the day. And actually, I must say then, it was a great question reminding me about kind of collage the community of the professors at Corpus when I think of it. But this particular professor, very memorable, but it's my bad, I'm bad with names. But I think him actually making that connection between, now thinking of it deeper, between high school and college. So he was a high school teacher, but it was very nice that he wanted to share his expertise at Corpus Christi College in the evening with this class. So it was like a 6 to 8 class, or 5 to 8 or something.
Yeah, like so those three. I've had a couple 3-hour classes with those. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. And it was very interesting because it was long, and we actually sat in a horseshoe shape. And even to this day, I try and get horseshoe shape desks instead of like rows. But unfortunately, Fraser Academy is such an old building. Having even 10 students in a class, just the logistics of fitting that. So we do have to do rows sometimes. But I found actually seeing the other students, not just in rows, like at a UBC that has all built-in rows, really helped to create that dialogue and things like that between the professor and the students. And actually, a few of those students I still see and play Warhammer with. That's part of the connection with Neil, which is interesting too. So it was very interesting from that. It was that class, actually, we got quite with we were able to discuss like that. And I think so I'd say, that particular professor, unfortunately, he would not be named, but students listening to this can project their own favorite professor onto that kind of description that I made.
It's okay. The description that you made at least gave me some sort of picture or idea maybe of what he could look like. All right. So up to imagination. But no, that's still, I'm really happy to hear that. And it's a shame that I don't know if we really have that course anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but
not to worry. Yeah, I know it's dependent on professors sometimes, and I think, I'm not sure. Is there a medieval professor currently still?
Greek. I don't know. I think the only thing again, I could be wrong, and I hope anyone's like, no, there is. But we do have a Greek mythology professor, but I'm not sure if he's also dabbles within like medieval history as well, or in that realm. But I can fact check later, maybe.
But yeah, not to worry. I think that then goes to saying again that it's amazing where Corpus, like each alumni kind of has their own experience, and I feel like that almost maybe adds. So you're right, compared to bigger universities, where you have all the courses, but then almost the professor is nameless, like the students, in the sense of like it's the course, it's just this guy who's teaching it now. So it is interesting actually talking to other alumni at the recent alumni event, that each of our experiences is unique in that sense, because everyone takes different courses at different times. And so it kind of creates that blend. So it's quite the positivity, I think.
Right. Well, yeah, no, that's awesome to hear. And thank you for sharing that. So when you decide to transfer over to UBC, how is that experience going from Corpus to, I guess a much bigger institution? How is that for you?
Oh, excellent question. I guess, first, was it for Anthropol? Yeah, I think the going over, I guess first I ran into, they assumed my major without me saying anything or to do with my marks.
Right.
But yeah, certainly, I guess I'd say the application process was very different. I think currently, Jay, currently are there interviews being done for new entrances, or I think that was kind of being played around with post-COVID kind of thing?
Yeah. I think they're still doing that.
Yes. Oh, good. Sorry, I'll speak upon that. And I think nonetheless, too, because one institution, let alone when you hand in your application, UBC, it's like a big online process and you're typing in all the information. All these error boxes are coming up because you're missing something, but you aren't. And then, so definitely I found, applying to UBC was much more of a kind of a face, or for lack of a better, welcoming and friendly, but compared to Corpus Christi College, where I, again, meeting Dan Levangie at the career fairs, and let alone him actually remembering me when I go to apply to Corpus Christi College. And so coming into Corpus Christi College, where you fill out the application form, of course, and send in your scripts, similar to BC. But I found at Corpus Christi College having that interview process, even if it's not in depth, I know that evolves over the years, but just having a face-to-face with like yourself or Gabe Play and other people of the institution, where it's almost like they're getting to know you before you're a student, but also you get a chance to know kind of the atmosphere of the institution before attending. Right. And so I'd say coming from Corpus to UBC, so I go through the process and everything, I get my classes, and even that's a bit different. I definitely found the portal, and I think all the information that's provided to choose classes at CCC compared to UBC, you get more of that personal kind of trend where here's your courses, but you have this specific time to do it. There's like people trying to get the same courses, and I think on that too, if a course was full, you were pretty much out of luck. But faculty at UBC actually, I guess what's the right word? No, I guess that not that they didn't care, because like it was very sad, the passing of a professor, but right. Compared to the history department, everyone's kind of like, oh, okay, we're trying to help these students who had this course ready. It's almost time, they need another course. But then I almost felt like at Corpus, if something like that, gosh forbid, happened, and the whole school would help those students get placed and things. But UBC, I heard like the other departments are like, good luck if you're trying to get into another course, and they don't take that into a factor. So I found that was interesting. But just overall, where comparing, I guess, UBC transferred there. So there's the whole celebration days and the first week and such. So very good events there.
It's Corpus seemed like, again, and it kind of plays into the community aspect of something were to happen like that, God forbid. There is some sense of like, okay, let's see what we can do. Like there is no shutting the door on it completely, and then exactly. And I do find like, at Corpus, even though some classes may be full, like there's some leeway if you do talk to the professor. At UBC, I have found some, like, it depends on the class sizes, obviously, and the professor, but I have found like, oh, okay, if someone were to drop out, you'd be kind of first on the list. But I think that's like, you could always try with the professor, but you never know. But I definitely agree. There is a much better community feel, and you don't feel too lost. Would you be able to share any tips or advice that you found maybe were helpful for you, or maybe you discovered along the way when you were transferring over to UBC, that you could share with students that are going through that maybe later this year?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Oh, and first, though, I should caveat on some of the stuff I previously said, too, where certainly UBC was definitely a great time and such, too. I guess some of the stuff I was reminiscing on was just like how lucky everyone is to currently be at Corpus, so to enjoy that time. But precisely, I'll share some of the bright stuff, too. So I don't want to scare everyone, I realized when I had some moments to think. But some of the other tips where, like, certainly too, the nice thing is where, as we were just chatting about, there's that great community feel at Corpus Christi. So definitely bright side transferring to UBC. There's always that opportunity to still kind of take some courses through UBC while at Corpus Christi of anything like science or something particular you might need for a transfer credit. But at UBC, definitely just that plethora, as I was discussing at Corpus Christi, it's nice. There's a nice broad, but of course, for the size of Corpus Christi, not depth in every subject matter. So definitely transferring, I did find when you did get that page, it was, as I was kind of mentioning, overwhelming, yet also very exciting just to see how many different courses you could take. So for example, I took like a Roman army course in one of my later years. Yeah. And so definitely not very applicable in the real world, but very interesting. And if it helps you get your degree, then that can be fun sometimes.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, and so I guess yeah, transferring over to it was very interesting, just being introduced as well to other people. So as we were discussing at Corpus Christi, where you can really get to know on a personal base the professors. Certainly at UBC, though, you have the campus being that much larger and
Mhm.
that many separate different departments. Just the breadth of meeting so many different people is quite fascinating. And some of those people you might just chance encounter. You go and visit, and you're like, oh, that's not really my department, and you move on, or you might even see them in the future and make those connections deeper. But yeah, I guess sorry to get to the crux of the question
No
where
worries.
the recording's cooperating with us. Yeah, from Corpus to UBC, some tips I'd say. Yeah, I guess on that, yeah, definitely explore all the departments. So certainly coming from Corpus to UBC, you can declare because if you have enough credits and in the right area, what you want. But I still actually remember sitting in one of the massive auditoriums and like the history department, they're like, yeah, and we cheered. And then like the psych department, yeah, and they cheered. And then there was a small group of undeclared students. And like I think they were the loudest of their cheer. There was only like 10 of them.
Right.
But
Of course.
actually,
Of course.
yeah, thinking back, they're like, still, if you don't know in second year what you want when you're going into third year, you could still potentially explore a bit at UBC, especially too where in any particular case, if you already have like 20 credits in a couple subjects, you could still kind of explore a bit more at UBC before kind of fully declaring and taking those. Or again, myself taking 3 at Corpus, and I took 3 years at UBC. So it did take 6 years for those 120 credits, but you can certainly graduate with some more and actually even put some of that towards a your next degree if you decide not to leave
Right.
right after that. But yeah, some tips there. Yeah, certainly look at all the options. Because if you loved psych, which I hear a lot of people do, and Corpus Christi College has some excellent psych courses. Even yeah, if you have that passion myself for history, it is good to still explore those non-history classes. So myself for archaeology and museum studies, just to kind of dip my feet there. Besides courses, I'd say oh yeah, going to, as I mentioned, to UBC, definitely see the professors because if they are still quite personable if you do go during office hours. So don't be scared of that. Certainly, it's a lot feels a lot more friendlier as we were discussing at Corpus Christi College. But the professors they do get lonely during their office hours, so they're quite happy to have you in nonetheless.
No, it's true.
uh,
Sometimes their office hours, like where they're located, is an interesting part of a building, and it's like,
yes, yeah, you can get lost trying to find
yeah,
it. I've
exactly.
and actually, don't be afraid. I found if you want to feeling like Corpus at UBC, sit in the first few rows because certainly it can be fun to sit at the very back, especially if you're late for like I was for a couple of classes, uh, and easy in and out.
Yeah.
But if you are in the first few rows, I did find you do kind of feel like you're in that small class setting just because the professor's right there. You do have some students on your sides and maybe in front of you, but if you only see like 20 students in the first few rows, which are usually pretty empty, then you do get that feel. So that's definitely a tip there to kind of simulate that. Let alone in third and fourth year, once you get into very specific classes, sometimes they only cap at 50 people.
Right.
So I did
That,
actually have the blessing of Corpus kind of 30, 35, maybe 40, depending if it's like an English class and everyone needs to take it. But then, yeah, at UBC, then some classes, once I was in fourth year, only had 50 students. So really using Corpus as that jumping off point is huge to kind of keep those numbers down from the hundreds. And then on that too, oh yeah, advisors, very important. So
yeah.
Corpus Christi, great advisors, and it's really nice with the size of the student body. The advisors are always available. Appointment wait times aren't very long, let alone lineups.
Mhm.
UBC certainly longer, but still worthwhile visiting them, I'd say. And they definitely can help you in those sticky situations and such. Oh, and a big tip too, because it's a bigger institution, UBC, SFU, University of Victoria, and others, stick to your guns. I ran into a very interesting situation. They were just switching archaeology courses were becoming their own heading, like history and political
Oh,
science,
okay.
from anthropology. And so, since we have the anthropology museum, which we're very blessed to have on campus, their power, the anthropology department was huge. Where the archaeology department kind of finally became their own kind of areas, just so they were a bit differentiated, Archol and Anth,
Right.
compared to the big archaeology program up at SFU. But I ran into the thing when I went into my education program, so transferring within UBC, where they were like, "Oh, we can't really." Oh no, sorry, what was it? Oh, sorry. Actually, it started first as my minor at UBC. So I was discussing with them that they first didn't recognize my minor in anthropology, because they had I had archival courses because it had switched partway through my degree, and then I had to explain to them. I was like, oh no, well, this old minor, it still accepts both, and I had to stick to my guns a bit so I wasn't like shortchanged with my degree. So
Right.
technically, because like if they hadn't made the change, it still says an anthropology minor instead of archaeology, but you could take both classes. So I did kind of slightly run into the problem where their system didn't quite recognize that, so they had to kind of change it, which was good. But then again, some students who, if you take it at face value what an advisor says, which you should.
Right. Of
But
course. Of course.
if you see these kind of if, ands, or buts, so I found at UBC you might have to step up a bit more with that. But at Corpus, I find with that smaller bodies, like the counselors can easily talk to the department heads, where at UBC there's all this red tape and stuff. So
Definitely a process, yeah. But no, those
yeah.
those are very helpful tips, especially with I something that you remind me is sitting in front of I guess the first 2 or 3, 4 rows. That
Yeah.
definitely can remind you of a smaller class size because you're not really looking ahead of you. It's only like a couple of rows, nothing really to the side. I wish I had that mindset because I'd always sit back or middle at the most if it was like 100-person course or 100-person class, right?
Well, no, it's very, very fair too, Jay. Because if you have the option to, exactly, if because it is nice to, because you can kind of be there but do your own thing too. But yeah, exactly. If you want to feel that, or you can always change it around, because that's a nice thing too, I guess. At UBC, there's always so many empty seats. You could pretty much have a new seat every day,
Exactly.
compared to Corpus, where it can sometimes be awkward because everyone kind of finds their seat, and if you sit in a new one, someone might be like, "Oh, that's my seat."
Yeah,
Because
like technically, it's like no one really has a seat.
yeah, it's
But
like
I
theater
know-
seating.
Yeah, exactly. It feels very. It's like almost high schoolish. It's like you sit there. That's like where you always kind of sit.
Yeah.
But yeah, but no, thank you. Those are very helpful tips. I hope students that are listening to this later on can take that with them when they transfer over. So thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, we do have some questions that came in from students, and actually mainly from what I heard, it was mainly alumni or a couple of alumni that asked some questions for you.
That'd be great.
Some are going to be about obviously teaching, but then also are completely fun. So yeah, we can get into it. Number one, I guess, what is the greatest lesson you have learned in university? Kind of a heavy one, but yeah, greatest lesson.
Yeah.
It's
No,
going to be fun, but then it just comes off with the
yeah. What does they say? Start firm but fair. But yeah, greatest lesson. Oh, that's good. I guess I'll try and think of something that we haven't already mentioned as well. Certainly, it might relate still to some of the other previous lessons, but I'd say through university, I'd say almost try. Yeah, I guess similar as I mentioned to trying those different courses. I'd say that's probably the biggest thing I learned, where just trying those new things. I certainly found in high school, I kind of found my group of friends, and actually coming from small high school, I should say my graduation class was like 25 students. So
wow.
very, very, very small. Yeah, actually the whole student body at Fraser Academy was about 200 when I graduated, and only about 260 now. We were hoping to double in size to like 500 in the next decade with a new building.
Nice.
But actually with that idea, then I really felt safe in my space, and I guess that kind of leads to me becoming a teacher in the same school. That's very comfortable. But I guess coming biggest from university, so like Corpus helped me get used to the whole system again with that smaller community feel similar to Fraser. But once I got out into UBC, I felt that kind of broadened world perspective, where just kind of trying those things now that I felt comfortable with the basics, trying those more complicated things. So I think my first year I tried a whole bunch of clubs, and actually I think I ran myself ragged. I was like exhausted after the first day of like the club meetings because they were all at the same time, so I was like huffing into all of them. And so I found the niche ones, but I definitely found jumping back and forth to the different ones, just kind of seeing what I enjoyed. So I kind of landed on the UBC Dance Club, and I was with them for actually a number of years, which is quite good. And if anyone actually listening is doing the Duke of Edinburgh Award, dancing counts as exercise.
Really?
So it was really great that I was there for a number of years and gotten all those kind of hours. But yeah, let alone, as I mentioned, classes, trying clubs.
No.
As there was the Quidditch Club, which I'm sure you know about,
Yeah,
Jay. On yeah,
very
and so
familiar.
I actually, yeah, oh yeah, I didn't play, but I did actually see one of their practices. It was very nice. They're super accommodating. Oh, I know, right? It was one of those things I wanted. It was, I think, one of their or not tryouts, but like first days of the club,
Right.
and I just always heard of it, never seen it, except for them playing at Imagine Day where they have the hoops and they're just like throwing around the balls.
Yeah.
And they were super accommodating though. They did ask multiple times, like, "Oh, hey, do you want to come on the field?" I think I was either is exhausted from writing a paper or the first readings though. So just watching it was a lot of fun.
I wish I've never seen one um like live, but I had a couple of friends who joined. But I did see like maybe a glimpse of a practice. It looked really, really, really fun.
Oh, and I'd say certainly, since you're on campus most of the time, that's your day job. If you do get a
Yeah.
chance to jump there, you can even take, if there's any students interested after listening to this, you could head down as a group activity.
Okay. You know what? Good idea. Good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah. But I guess the premise of what you said is great. Just try as many things as you can. Maybe not run
Yeah.
yourself completely dry.
Yeah.
Maybe organize the schedule a little bit better, but try as many things as you reasonably can.
Exactly. And I take that then as I said too, even into my career in adulthood. And then even important for a career where everyone can even take that as a thought to, if you don't, like, if you've got your degree, or degree works for a said job, but you're a little nervous, like, do I have enough experience in this and that? Like, it's definitely worth just to put yourself out there, see what happens. And I guess as a brief anecdote of with scouting, the power of yes has, I guess, it's good to know when to say no. But the power of yes is very handy, because when they first had their youth commissioners in scouting, I said yes for the area and then yes for the council. So the next thing I know, I'm flying over to Newfoundland for a scout conference.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and like, certainly, like, I looked for interesting opportunities like that, but part of that was somebody who was like, "Oh, hey, are you interested?" And instead of being like, "No, I'm either busy or I'm not totally comfortable, so I'm not interested," I was just like, "Sure." And yeah, exactly. They had that year a scout conference in Newfoundland. So that's the reason why I've actually visited Newfoundland at this age.
Yeah, that's honestly good advice. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Was Great Dane Cafe there when you were a student first, or at Corpus or at UBC?
Oh yes, I believe both times, and I think it is either, because when in my first year. Oh, I should mention too, I was, yeah, there 3 years of course. So 2011 starting, I took a year off. I did take one course, just kind of a top up on English, so that definitely helped getting used to the university
Right.
courses. And I'd say it was, yeah, since 2010, and then I think up
Oh,
until the last few years. And but yeah, I guess if there's a specific question, or I can always
yeah,
reminisce on it if you like.
yeah. Well, the question was Great Dane or McCafe. So I guess the
Mhm.
breakfast
Mhm.
of McDonald's. What do you prefer?
Oh, very nice. Yeah, so I'd say, well, certainly if you're running late for class, maybe the McCafe. Especially, I would get off on the 99 if I didn't take the 33. But I know, I must say, the times I visited Great Tane was a lot of fun, where either with students or if a professor is going there after class, and then some students, you carry on a conversation that came up interestingly and during class on the topic that day. So yeah, I'd say Great Dane over that, because then it almost felt like like a Corpus Christi's own coffee shop that you could still
Yeah,
mingle
yeah,
with other
exactly.
people. Yeah.
It's like some,
So yeah.
yeah, it's definitely gotten popular over the years for sure. But I remember even when I first came, it was kind of like a nice little, like, if you know, you know, type of
Ah, yes, yeah.
place.
Oh, and that was the thing too. I think
Yeah,
I didn't stumble upon it. Like, someone took me there. Exactly.
exactly. Right. Okay. So Great Dane. You know what?
Hmm.
Yeah, their breakfast is very underrated. I do recommend for students
Oh,
to maybe not spend as much, money there as you can, but once in a while, once a week maybe, if
yeah,
that's
treat. Yeah.
a treat. Yes, exactly. Great
A
scones.
treat. Oh yeah, a treat for your either if your class is really early after, but or a treat for your early class, so then it makes you want to get out of bed.
Exactly, exactly. Okay.
Mhm.
Next one. Oh, okay. This one's, I wouldn't say heavy, but definitely think. What superpower would
Oh,
you want to have and why?
oh, that's a very good question. Oh, what superpower? Um, I guess maybe flying, because as I've mentioned, I can sometimes be late for things or need longer to do things. So flying would certainly help me get places.
I like it. It's what's the word? I
I
guess
guess
it,
you probably think, yeah.
no, I can't remember the word, but I understand what you mean. Yes, I think flying. I like flying.
Or I guess maybe pragmatic you might be thinking of,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. Because I mean, it does serve a purpose, right? Like, oh, I'm always
Mhm.
late. Like flying would solve it. For me,
Yeah.
I'm almost. I think I'm just very. I don't like drive. Like I drive almost everywhere I go. So if I were to save time, I would just love to teleport. That was mine. Like,
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, the whole thing I was thinking of then beating traffic and other, and I guess that's the nice thing being a superpower. Presumably not everyone has it because everyone has it. You just have gridlocks with flying people or gridlocks and teleportation.
exactly. Like there's already traffic on the road, and then if there's too many people,
Mhm.
there's gonna be too much traffic on the sky in the sky. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh, what happened there?
Yeah.
All right. I guess our last question that student asked was there any extracurricular courses that you enjoyed at either UBC or at Corpus?
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I guess I had mentioned the dance club was really good already. And yeah, didn't try Quidditch, but looked interesting. I was thinking back to Corpus Christi because yeah, there was there, but then UBC. Yeah, I think all the ones I tried were quite nice. I guess I'll kind of go through and then I'm sure one will jump out because then it's been a few years. But
Right.
yeah, so yeah, dancing was really good again for Duke of Ed. It was nice. It counted towards the exercise. And although actually I couldn't do the waltz for the life of me. I think I was born
Very
in
tough,
the
man.
yeah, I think it was like the timing, and I must appreciate like shout out to like all my dancing partners that their patience, and I think I was born in the wrong era. I feel like disco probably would have been my jam.
I like the way you think. It's good.
Yeah.
Very yeah.
But yeah, there's that one was good. I must say the department clubs I highly recommend. I didn't get a chance to go to all of them because once again they're all like similar times and having the time for those specific ones. But it was interesting. Like the archaeology department has one. Never actually got a chance to. Unfortunately, I didn't try that as a new thing. Like part of the archaeology club is like on Tuesday nights. Might be a different night now. You could actually go to the Museum of Anthropology and actually like help them organize finds that they've got. So like it might be more like
Oh,
shells and bones, but literally like you're kind of getting experience, but it's like a club atmosphere and they show you the techniques.
right.
So I always heard it talked about, but unfortunately I was so busy with the archaeology courses that I didn't have a chance. So yeah, there's that one. And then I think yeah, through Corpus. Oh, there was I think at one point there was like a debate club at Corpus Christi, or maybe it's still around because there was Voices of Hope, but there was also I think one of the professors might have ran it that was there previously, but just kind of like a discussion club. So like there was like a hot topic of the day, might be controversial, and then everyone just kind of has an open discussion on it. So I thought that was quite nice at Corpus Christi.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, so I think for any one club, yeah, I think just the a variety of them. I think I'm forgetting one that was quite impactful because there was. Yeah, so I would almost say the department clubs, I think, were the most impactful. Department, nonetheless, for Corpus Christi with that kind of discussion, kind of having that open dialogue, which is so important. But yeah, just actually being able to kind of visit when you could the actual kind of hang out with people who are in classes with you with a similar interest, but you don't always have that time to chat. And you might even
Right.
find a new seating buddy or somebody because you might be like, oh, I'm taking 301 something something next semester. And you're like, oh, great.
Very
But no,
good.
it's yeah, that, yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Well, Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Matthew, for all those grateful, insightful tips and sharing your story of your time back from Fraser Academy to Corpus Christi and then ultimately to UBC now, where you are a teacher at Fraser Academy. It was great listening and bearing with me
Oh no.
with the connection. And you answered them perfectly and you handled it like a pro.
Aw, thank you, Jay. Well, I must say you're a very
Right,
good moderator and a very good patience as well. Because not to worry, coming from teaching over during some of COVID,
right,
definitely feel for there was lots of times where, especially like playing videos, having headphones in when we were still learning how it worked, when
right.
everyone's like, we can't hear the video. And the teacher's like, oh,
Like, oh, yeah, experiencing that at UBC too. It was just very like, oh, it's not loading or it froze or something like
thank
that.
you so much for listening, everyone, and for Jay for bringing me on. It was a pleasure. And overall, I just wanted to summarize once again that everyone should feel lucky where myself and yourself, Jay, who got to go through Corpus Christi College and have that as a great springboard in a community and a time there. On that too, then, yeah, and I hope you have enjoyed or will enjoy your time, depending on what stage of Corpus Christi College you're at, first, second year, just coming in, just leaving. But overall, I just wanted to say too, just kind of, I wanted to make sure, yeah, I painted Corpus Christi College as a wonderful place to have been, will be going, things like that. But also too that hopefully I didn't paint that the rest of the world is too scary. Where certainly UBC has its all of its positives and things like that.
Great. It was great speaking to you, Matthew. Uh,
Yeah, great speaking with
we'll
you too, Jay. Thank you for having me again.
definitely see you soon.